2023. We are going to begin by calling this meeting to order. And then we're going to stand for a Pledge of Allegiance, and then we're going to remain standing for words of inspiration by Pastor Wade Mitchell from Grace Apostolic Church.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing.
Let's pray. Lord Jesus, we thank you, Lord, for this day. God, I thank you, Lord, for these city council members and all that they do for our city. Lord, be with us today. Lord, that we continue, Lord, to do good work for the people of this city. Lord, we thank you, Lord, for all that the city council members, our mayor, are doing. Lord, help them in every way. Continue to move forward. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you very much. Roll call, please, Mr. Gitschlag.
Mayor Milan.
I'm here.
Councilmember Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Sampson.
Here.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Here.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Here.
As a quorum, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much. Next thing on the agenda will be the approval of the agenda. Would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Mayor, I have a motion to amend the agenda. A motion that we add city council organization and open items and have a discussion around standing commissions and other external groups for council member alignment and appointment for this meeting's agenda.
Support.
Hope you have that written down because I don't know what that means. Okay.
Roll call, please.
No discussion?
You want to discuss?
Yeah, we can discuss. Seemed easy, but yeah,
Okay,
let's discuss.
that's fine, we can
No,
vote.
that's okay. Let's give, would anyone like to discuss is the question? Does anyone have anything?
Where is that going? Under new business?
Let's put it under new
Now,
business.
is there going to be a special meeting
That
or
wasn't
discussion
the-
today? Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think the point was the discussion to have special meeting, which is a proper meeting to address those items.
Okay.
So we added to K to new business. Would make sense? At the end? Okay.
Okay, any other comments other than where to put that? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Great.
Added a K.
Wonderful. The next item, now that we've approved our agenda, will be public comment for items on the agenda. If you are present and you would like to speak to any item on the agenda, please make your way to the podium. We will allot you 3 minutes if you state your name and address, and the floor is yours. Do we have any takers this evening? I will take that as a no, and we will move from public comment for items on the agenda to proclamations and presentations. Is someone presenting?
I figured you could read the letter if you'd like me
Oh,
to.
I can, or you can. I didn't know
Either way.
how we wanted to do it, so
However.
why don't you? It's
Sure.
one of our great staff, so let's not ignore. This is a great thing.
Butch, if you and Trevor would come up to the microphone, please. So in a letter from the Rotary dated January 25th.
No, you first.
Just get up. You guys do this more often. Says, attention, Trevor Zablocki, Superintendent. Dear Trevor, the Rotary Club of Clawson sincerely appreciates the DPW support of our Rotary Club and its charitable mission last year. Your staff's assistance in placing our new meeting sign and the peace pole at Rotary Park was most appreciated. We will use this outreach to raise funds that will support children and adults in literacy, educational outreach, and nutritious programs for our community. And we also want to acknowledge the efforts of Butch, who always greets us with a warm smile, and he provides exceptional service for us. He is a great example of our club motto, service above self. The city of Clawson is truly fortunate to have him as one of its employees. Sincerely, Jeffrey W. Geralds, President, and Kevin Pelkey, past president. Mr. Pelkey came to the office and specifically spoke about Butch and his sincere appreciation.
Wait, can't we take a photo with you?
we need a
love
photo.
to take photos for presentations. Don't go anywhere, Trevor. Get back here. And Butch, please come back the way you intended in the first place, and we will all meet you here. No, you're going to be in it.
Yeah, in the middle, too.
Right? What are you trying to get him to do?
Awesome, thanks.
Thank you. We always appreciate, we know our people are great, right? But it's always great to hear when someone else appreciates them as well. So thank you for that. Next up will be consideration of approving the following consent agenda. Item A would be minutes of the regular city council meeting held on Tuesday, January 17th, 2023, as presented. Item B is the appointment of Richard Scott to the Planning Commission, the unexpired term to expire on December 31st, 2023, and list of bills in the amount of $1,924,934.87.
Madam Mayor, I move to amend the consent agenda. We can just do that, right? That's the process?
You want to pull something off?
Yeah, I want to pull the appointment for Richard Scott and place it so we can have an open discussion about it.
Sure.
Okay.
I will agree to that if it goes under 9AA, so that we can discuss it first.
Perfect.
Perfect?
That's fine.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this? But we're not supposed to discuss the consent agenda? Is everyone good moving forward?
Make a motion, we approve the consent agenda as amended.
Thank you.
Support.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Great, so we will now move to item number 9, which is new business, and we will discuss the appointment of Richard Scott to the Planning Commission. Councilmember Shepherd?
I just was hoping that I have an
Do
opportunity.
we have a motion?
Oh, sorry.
Sorry. We would like to move to appoint Richard Scott to the Planning Commission for the unexpired term to expire on December 31st, 2023.
Support?
Second.
Okay, for discussion. So I like having an opportunity to provide those who are willing to give their time and volunteer an opportunity to present themselves to the community, any well wishes and any intentions that they have on serving on our boards and commissions. And having past served on the Planning Commission, I always like having a friendly face to see before we at least have an opportunity to provide them before they are appointed to that board. So from what I saw, I don't know if, let's see if Mr. Scott is here or not. Certainly come forward if you do. I'd appreciate it.
Right here.
Excellent, thank you.
Mr. Scott, thank you for coming this evening, and thank you for your willingness to serve on this board and commission. Would you
Absolutely.
please share with us why you would like to serve and anything about yourself that you would like us to know? We all have your application. Clearly, you're duly suited to serve, but what would you like to share with us?
I didn't come prepared with anything, but I'll tell you that I and my family have lived in Clawson for 27 years? 27 years. And thoroughly enjoyed it. I mean, we've been here 27 years. We didn't choose to move or anything. We love this community. And it's, at this point in my life, I just feel like I want to give back to the community that we love so much. So I took a look at the descriptions of all the various boards and whatnot, and it seemed like this one made the most sense based on some of my background. So that's it.
Perfect.
Sounds
Appreciate
great.
it.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Scott? No? Great, then I would request we move to roll call, roll call, please.
Councilman Sampson?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes. Welcome to the Planning Commission. You start next week. You'll have fun. It'll be great. And if you stay for the meeting, you'll hear at the end the Planning Commission report, right? That's on the agenda tonight?
Yes, ma'am.
So, good heads up for you. But thank you so much for coming this evening for that. Next item on our agenda will be consideration of approving the fiscal year 2022-2023 second quarter budget amendments. Mr. Raker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Per the Uniform Budgeting and Accounting Act, PA 2 of 1968, Section 17.1, except as otherwise provided in Section 19, a deviation from the original General Appropriations Act shall not be made without amending the General Appropriations Act. Subject Section 16.2, the legislative body of the local unit shall amend the General Appropriations Act as soon as it becomes apparent that a deviation from the original General Appropriation Act is necessary and the amount of the deviation can be determined. An amendment shall indicate each intended alteration and the purpose of each appropriation item affected by the amendment. General Fund 101, total revenues will increase by $159,000 as a result of additional building permits and interest revenue. The expenditures in the general fund are being increased by a total of $159,000 across all departments. The city's council's budget was increased due to the additional cost for the lawsuit brought against the city. The police department is requesting additional funds due to the promotion and realignment of staffing, as well as additional training and certifications for the department. The building department is increasing salaries due to the additional inspections, which align with the increased revenue in the building permit fees. The treasurer's office increased professional services for the bank carrier, which started services in May of 2022. The courier service budget was estimated at a lower cost than required. This provides for a reduction in staff time making deposits, as well as staff safety concerns, as PNC no longer has a branch within the city limits. Other department budget amendments realign the budget to actual costs, actual and forecasted needs. The net change in the general fund is zero. Then there's an explanation of realignment by funds. Should you have any other questions? Our finance director, Kelly Rao, is here.
1 second, because we have to backtrack, because of course we're out of order. Would someone like to make a
I'll
motion?
make the
that we
motion.
discuss that?
I move to approve the fiscal year 2022-23 quarter two budget amendment as presented.
Support.
Thank you. Now we may proceed.
There we go.
Does anyone have any questions for Kelly?
We'll have her just present to the community what the changes were and or summarize it.
I'm sorry, what was that?
Yeah, summarize the changes for the community so they can,
So for the most part, all funds have a net effect of zero. General fund has the most amendments. There was additional revenues received with interest and investment income, additional revenues in building permits than was originally budgeted. The parks and senior programs, those were actually reduced, the revenue, due to declining revenues for those programs. The director now is looking at those programs and seeing how they can add additional revenues and additional programs. So we are keeping a close eye on those parks or recreation and seniors programs for revenue. So that was the revenue. The city council budget was increased due to the lawsuit, attorney fees, settlement, cost of the settlement, election service department put in a little bit extra for what we thought was going to be a May election for the schools. We weren't sure at the time. And then additional services, outside services for the ballot machines, I believe, to audit the ballot machines, or that's August lingo, so, right? To audit them, or run the paper through, or, okay. So with the elections, we took money from the city clerk's budget, so that was a net effect of zero for the clerk's budget. Treasurer's office, again, as Mr. Raker stated, there was additional cost for the bank carrier that wasn't included in the original budget back in May. Police,
that?
pardon me?
how much was it added?
That was added, excuse me, $8,400. So Police department are realigning staff, have more training that they're doing, additional costs for their accreditation, repairs, lighting, doors, for the lockup. The majority of that was covered within their budget, but there was additional, the revenue from permits, investment income was allocated, some of that was allocated to the police department. And Public Works just realigned all of their expenditures. That was a net of zero for that department in particular, but increased supplies, professional services, phone service that was being allocated to departments directly rather than a generic account that we call City Hall. So we're phasing that account out, and we'll see that through the cost allocation plan that is being prepared for us currently and should have completed in a couple weeks. And transfers out, we are reducing that by $14,000. It was a transfer out to the library. The library will be using their fund balance if need be. Right now, it doesn't look like they'll need it, but if they do need to, that's included in their budget as well as use of fund balance of $14,000 and a reduction for a contribution from general fund. Major streets is transferring an additional $30,000 out to local streets for concrete patch repairs. So that will show in the budget as a transfer in from major roads. Just some smaller transfers. Additional routine maintenance is the concrete patchwork, some professional services. That was a portion of that was to pay for the DDA parking study of $1,500. And water and sewer fund just increased a small amount for water tax and fee reimbursement and increased their expenditures to align with that same dollar amount. Anything else?
So you were mentioning the recreation department and the reduction in revenue.
Yes.
Okay, so did they have an initial idea on why it's going down? I mean,
The majority of it is due to COVID and
Yeah.
pandemic, and they've never really gotten back to pre-pandemic revenues. Seniors are no longer engaging in the programs. They gave me a big an explanation on why.
Gina, would you like to come up?
there we go.
She's here. There she goes.
Gina Boyd is
I saw you out there. I take my glasses off.
I didn't realize you were, I'm sorry. Now, our big number basically is, a huge chunk of that was our summer camp. That was usually, we would have at least 7 weeks of that was in the fiscal year that would be following this. So that would alone is usually about 20 or 30 grand. We haven't brought that back, but we're planning on having camps come in this summer, hopefully, because that will still keep our staffing down, our costs down, but still able to offer more to the community. We're also trying to bring back things like kickball that I know people want this summer. We started with more senior trips as well, and more presentations coming in, things like that. So hopefully, over time, we'll be able to bring those numbers back up, obviously. But one of our rooms right now needs to be fixed before we can do summer camp. So,
Okay, yeah, I assumed it was,
yeah.
a lag from COVID and reluctance to.
100%.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, the other item that I saw.
Gina?
Yes, thank you very much, appreciate it. The other item was on site plan reviews, and what that was expected, and I see Joe sitting in the back.
Yes, those are being reduced as well, the site plan reviews.
Okay, so whether or not that is,
Site plan and zoning.
yeah. just not the number that we've had in the past?
It's
and-
not the number that was budgeted. It may have been higher the previous year. I do have a report that may, actually, I don't have that report.
No, I just-
for previous years.
I mean, it's again, it's not, how should I say, it's not it's not a gigantic number, for lack of a better term, but it's the percentage decrease is what concerns me. And that means that there's not that economic activity for those that we've seen in the past, and whether or not that's a sign of some type of slowdown for economic development within our community, or that's just general from what we're seeing across the region.
Yeah, and the costs will go down too, that align with those revenues. So when the revenues go down, the costs typically will go down as well, so.
Okay. It was just those are the things that caught my attention.
Any-
I can touch on that a little bit if you want to.
Absolutely, yeah, please.
So the fees and permits, when it comes to building, zoning, and site plan specifically, are kind of sometimes hard to gauge for the year in advance. I mean, 255 West 14 Mile is a pretty good example. It's not every year we have our largest residential site having projects done, so that's why the increase is there. And so we can't necessarily gauge all the time when certain sites are going to be up for development, et cetera, so we kind of just benchmark it based on previous years. So I think as you shared, it might have been a little slower this year, but I think we're starting to see some more activity with some of our potential sites here.
Okay, and I know that there's some other sites that have been earmarked and actually had site plans, and not much has been done with those. So would they be re-engaged in those site plan reviews, depending on when those were initiated, and if they've expired, what's happening with those properties in those areas?
Yeah, I think last year there were 2 or 3 properties that had approved site plans, and they ended up not moving forward with that site. But if we're talking about the same ones, we've gotten some more traction on them, so I think we'll be moving pretty quickly on some of those in the planning commission.
Okay, all right.
Nick, would you go back and explain what 255 West 14 Mile Road is for people who are listening and have no clue?
That is the big building you can see from anywhere in Clawson. So that's the Clawson Manor site. They are completely revamping every room. And like I said, we can't really always project for that, but I believe they want to have all their work done by sometime this summer. They're trying to get it done as quickly as possible. They're in the process of pulling all their permits, so we're hoping to have those residents in new apartments soon.
We had an email from a citizen. Is there going to be a HUD?
So the organization that purchased it, they do work with HUD and are funded through HUD, so yes.
That interested?
But nothing's changing with you still have residents that are there that are not going to be impacted, right?
Correct, so when their room is being redone, they're just shifting them to another floor.
Sure.
So that's it.
Okay.
With no, oh. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Kelly or for our city manager regarding this item?
Appreciate it, thank you.
If we have no other questions, then we will have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes?
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Thank you. So we have just approved the fiscal year 2022-23 second quarter budget amendment. And you could probably stay there, right? Because we're going to now move on to consideration to receive and file the fiscal year 2022-2023 second quarter financial report. Mr. Raker, would you like to speak on
So
that too, or
moved.
Kelly? Oh, sorry, yeah, let's make a motion.
I'll
Sorry.
make a motion.
I will support it since
Thank you.
since it's quiet.
Sorry, yeah, no,
I'll
I
do that to you.
was reading it first, so I'm sorry.
It's okay, we're good. Now, you're on.
The quarterly financial report is being submitted to provide an interim view of the financial performance of the city's operating revenues and expenditures throughout the year. The report shows the progress that has been made in relation to City Council's budget, as well as providing additional items for review that may affect revenues and expenditures. These reports are not audited and may omit information based on timing of revenues and expenditures. The quarterly financial report has been prepared to show the approved budget against the year-to-date results. In addition, this report gives an overview of the financial well-being of the city. This report will be submitted quarterly as the state recommends the legislative body be provided periodic financial reports, which also aligns with best practices throughout municipal accounting. Previously, financial reports were not prepared for council due to turnovers, staffing, and additional workload because of vacant positions.
First of all, I'd like to say we appreciate the effort that went into providing this report to us. Any information is good, and we do appreciate that. And just for record, we are not here to critique this report. We are here to receive and file it. But does anyone have any questions?
You can critique it because I plan on amending it in the future as to what you guys want to see. So if there's something different you want to see or additional, I'll add that in future reports.
Okay, well, I will critique by saying it was really very readable, so thank you for that. It was very well presented, very easy to read, and sometimes financial reports are not, for people like me who don't really care about financial reports. So thank you for making that effort. Does anyone have any comments or concerns? Or Kelly, would you like to share anything else about this report? Any highlights?
It's basically, I think the budget amendment kind of flows into this financial report, so it will show where we're short on some of the revenues. Property taxes are trending how they should be. The majority of our property tax revenues come in by the end of December, so we'll see most of that revenue that was budgeted come in prior to the end of the year, so it's running about 93% through December. We covered some of the fines and forfeitures, the charge for services for parks and planning and zoning that have been reduced. Permits, it talks about permit revenue is increased more, about 94% of what we budgeted, so that will be adjusted with the amendment that you just approved. Everything seems to be in line where it should be through December, but I'll keep an eye on any of those items that are touchy, like the program fees, charge for services, to make sure that we're where we're at by the end of the year.
Did you have any surprises when you compile? I know you do this every day, but were there any surprises that you encountered when you were compiling this, or any specific needs we need to pay special attention to moving forward?
No, not really. We still have the ARPA funds out there that we haven't spent or allocated, so that's 1.2 million, I think, 1.2. So those are still out there in the budget, and I'll just keep budgeting in the future until we allocate them, so we don't forget about them. So,
All right, we are not going to forget about that little boon.
But no, everything looks good. It's running how it should for the most part. There's some funds that are going to be tight, and they are tight every year, major and local streets. There's going to be additional reports submitted to City Council. We're having a cost allocation model prepared, and with that, we'll also be preparing user fees for council to adopt with the budget. So that will be coming forward, as well as a water and sewer rate study in a couple weeks will be presented to council as well, which will all align with the upcoming budget.
Great. Councilmember Anderson, do you have any questions?
No.
Councilmember Sampson?
Nope.
Councilmember Shepherd? Nope. How about you, Mr. Councilmember Tinlin?
No, not for this time.
Okay.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Thank you. So we have now provided authorization to receive and file the fiscal year 2022-2023 second quarter financial report. The next item on our agenda will be consideration of adopting the Municipal Employees Retirement City, known as MERS, Retiree Health Funding Vehicle Uniform Resolution. And she's back.
Just in case.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The city of Clawson is currently using MERS for healthcare.
Sorry, we didn't make a motion again.
Pardon me, yeah.
We're just off flow this year. I know, I looked at you
You're
like,
doing
go.
better than usual.
Madam Mayor, I moved to, I so moved to.
We have 8 more to get this
There we go.
correct, right?
There we go. I got you.
Oh, I just want to hear my voice.
Right?
You're good.
We're good? Okay, thank you. Yeah? For real.
The city of Clawson is currently using MERS for the healthcare savings plan for the active employees as well as for the pre and post 65 funded health reimbursement accounts. The MERS pre and post 65 retiree requires the adoption of the retiree health funding vehicle uniform resolution, which would allow MERS to establish a Section 115 trust to return forfeited funding to the city in the event a participant dies without dependents and/or a named beneficiary, as well as any future funding to reduce OPEB liability. This is a housekeeping item to be in compliance with the MERS HCSP agreement, which requires the governing body's approval to adopt. I might be able to give you a little bit more context from my memo. So, okay, the City of Clawson is currently using MERS Healthcare Savings Plan in accordance with the collective bargaining agreements for active employees hired after July 1st, 2004 for post-retirement health care. As of January 1st, 2023, the retiree pre- and post-65 funded health reimbursement accounts were moved from Total Administrative Services Corporation, TASC, to MERS, HCSP. The move from TASC to MERS for the pre- and post-65 retirees was necessary for the following reasons. 1, alleviate the ongoing administrative issues. 2, MERS plan offers lower administrative costs. 3, MERS plans allow for a higher discount rate, which can lower OPEB liability. And 4, MERS plan offers a beneficiary provision. Adoption of the MERS Retiree Health Funding Vehicle Resolution by the governing body is necessary and required in order to establish a Section 115 trust. This will allow MERS to return forfeited funding to the city in the event participant dies. The rest is just repetitive, so I wanted to provide those reasons why we made the move from TASC to MERS. TASC to MERS.
Thank you. Any questions? Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Thank you. We have now approved the adoption of a municipal employees retirement system retiree health funding vehicle uniform resolution. Next on our agenda is consideration of approving the proposal from Anderson, Eckstein, and Westrick, AEW, to provide a building evaluation assessment for Hunter Community Center.
So moved.
Support. Thank you.
Okay. The building, now known as Hunter Community Center, was built in the 1950s as an elementary school and officially became Clawson property in the early 1990s. Over the last few decades, there have been some improvements made to the building. However, most of the building has not been updated and is still in its original condition. The building has served Clawson well for a long time. However, we may be at a crossroads where the cost for the deferred maintenance, upgrades, and future sustainment operations may call into question the potential obsolescence of the building for continued long-term use. It is imperative we know all the needs to be addressed with the building and projected potential costs before we can accurately develop a capital improvement plan for the building or consider other options. The total base lump sum fee for the building evaluation is $13,500 and will require a budget adjustment. There is a companion budget amendment that is going with this item.
And I'm just with Matt Burge with Anderson, Eckstein, Westrick, just in case you have any questions, I'm here.
Thanks for being here, Matt.
And the director and DPW are here both to comment on this item if there are any questions.
Okay. Do we have any questions? Council members?
Yes, I do. You would put your proposal together, and in that you talked about assessing the property. I'm clear, will you also be recommending what the cost might be to bring it up to speed, up to code, things like that?
Yeah, that's basically what we're going to do in the scope of that proposal is we're going to look at the building, we're going to document deficiencies we observe and estimate the costs to bring it up to current standards, so.
That's the entire site.
I was primarily concerned with the building portion of it
Sure.
as the architect, so
Okay.
apologize.
No, I'm just curious if whether or not if there's any drainage concerns over there.
Would that take into consideration the parking and the drainage concerns? 'Cause
I can read, I apologize, I can pull the proposal up and double check to make sure.
I have it here.
Unless you have a.
It looks like just your parking lot for the external, and then the plumbing looks like internal assessment. from your quote.
The civil engineers will be on site. So we're going to be making general observations. I mean, we wouldn't be doing any exhaustive, soil borings or items of that concern. If we see something, we'll take a picture of it and we'll recommend it for further investigation as the civil engineers see fit.
There's a manhole, a drain in the middle of that field, covered. They covered it with dirt, whatever they used to cover it. So
Yeah.
it's something that needs to be looked at.
No, I only bring it up because it just, flooding is always in the back of my mind, whether or not that's something that is in course of observation. Obviously, we know it's clay.
Yeah.
So there's not much there other than, if that, the drainage and whatever is in the field, if it has if there's any indication that that may be something that may be addressed at another time. I don't know, just as an amendment or just as something to be looked at in the course of what's happening here? Perfect, thank you.
Please announce who you are for the people at home who may not know you.
Trevor Zablocki, Superintendent, DPW. Typically, during this process, the city itself will send a camera down in those drains and sewers and check them out, instead of paying AEW to have a contractor do it.
Okay, all right.
Does that answer that?
Yep,
Okay.
that's fine. Good.
How
Can
long
that be joined as part of the report that we get?
Yes,
Okay.
I will work with Mike Smith at AEW, and it'll all be put in the report.
Perfect, okay.
when will we receive the final product?
Usually a study like that would take about, I would assume, a month or so after we get boots on the ground, so.
So
In April?
He was asking if it would be April, or
Well,
restating it was
I mean,
April.
today, this is February, so if we get approval today, it could be March or April.
Okay. Thanks. So we've done studies on this building in the past.
No, ma'am.
We have definitely talked about this building in the
You've
past.
talked about it, yes.
I'm sure there've been some sort of studies or evaluations because it has come before with pricing and what it would take to fix certain aspects of the building prior to your being here, so you may be unaware. I'm not saying AEW did it, but I'm quite certain that there's been something that's been done, that's been discussed about the cost of this building and the various types of repairs that needed to be undertaken, perhaps not to this extent. So what I'm asking is, will those previous lists, that information, be utilized with this report?
I don't have paperwork, I mean, unless someone was coming in for a specific bid on a particular project, we don't have an overall assessment of anything like that, a general overview of the building.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to imply that it was a general overall
Yeah.
of the building, but you've had issues with the building, right? So in the time I sat on council, I've heard numerous times that roof is bad, the HVAC's bad, the plumbing's bad, all these things are bad. So you must have some place to start with all of those. So I'm just asking if you're going to incorporate some of that information into the report that they're going to conduct so that you have benchmarking to see if things are worse than they were before, or you're just going forward and just going to find problems and then figure out ways to mitigate.
Well, and I think part of that will be up to if the city can find those records, because I don't have those records. If some other company did a study 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 2 years ago, I'm not aware of it. But certainly anything that the city can give us that we can read before we go will be talked about or included in that program, whether it's the condition has deteriorated further or it wasn't as bad as they originally thought. Whatever it was, we would definitely want to see that information because it's going to help us zero in on what we need to look at.
So there have to be some of those types of things because you've had building repairs for.
I have never seen results of a study or anything like that. Normally, if we have problems, like, say if we have a plumbing issue, like, we've had issues with plumbing in some of our smaller classroom bathrooms, we have to cap the plumbing. We don't go busting into anything that basically we've problem solved at this point. So we don't, DPW comes out, if it can't be fixed, it's capped, because we don't we don't hire it out.
You don't use any outside sources for anything?
If there's, I mean, I want to say when we've had leaks or the bathroom, we've had flooding issues this year with that, so we'll call up, you know, Royal Plumbing or whatever like that, but when it comes to actual coming out to price out what work would be done, we haven't, because we weren't entertaining the possibility of doing that work.
My understanding is historically there, and Trevor, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's an asbestos issue that with the pipes.
Every building that
and within-
age, right?
Oh, yeah.
Within the building, within the walls, within the confines, period. And so that is why the rationalization, I guess the previous director did not move forward with any of that, and coupled with turnover and COVID, nothing moved forward.
Yeah,
So we'd socialized this, I socialized this with, there was a walkthrough that was conducted with the school district when Scott Cervella was the interim, and from that, there was no official report was generated. It was conversation that didn't materialize into anything official.
Okay, and I didn't say it necessarily was a formal report, but you do have history, right? And I just know that it would be beneficial for you to have any kind of history to go. I know you're doing a look over and you're going to state what you find currently, but if there is anything historical that can be added to it, it makes what they're doing more efficient. That's all I was asking for. But if it doesn't exist, then do your magic.
I
Should
think
we
you're-
approve it in a minute?
I think you're right. During the bond issue for the schools, there is a document that talks about the way the school's seen Hunter. So they had engineers in there, so maybe that's something you want to get from them.
Yeah, I know they did kind of wander through the building. There weren't any serious, you know, any sort of serious assessing going on, but they did wander through the building. I haven't gotten the report from that.
Maybe something you want to ask them for.
Absolutely.
Anyone else?
Yes, once your report is ready, I'm assuming there's basically three courses of action. Either repair it, we sell it, or we demolish it. So are there any other options besides those three?
I mean, well, you know, the city's got to determine, you know, do you want to operate this facility? And yeah, at the end of the day, you really don't have a lot of other options between renovate, build a new one, or, you know, close it down. I don't see, you know, as my role is engineering and architecture in terms of looking at the physical infrastructure, you know, the visioning for what you might want to do is kind of a little bit up to you folks, but, you know, that's important to be able to show the taxpayers, look, this is what it's going to cost to renovate it. This is what it's going to cost if we wanted to build something new that serves the same function, and this is what we lose if we, you know, demolish the building and don't replace the function. So.
Okay. I'm just wondering, will your report, in addition to estimating costs to renovate, will it also have estimated costs to demolish? We don't want to, I'm saying when I go there, I'm just saying.
Separate.
For all contingencies.
No, I don't believe that was in the scope we were talking.
Okay.
That wouldn't be hard for us to find, I'm sure, but, because contractors can demolish quickly.
I want to be positive. I'm looking for good things at Hunter. I just want all possibilities considered.
And just for the people who are paying attention and going, what do you mean you're going to demolish Hunter? Not on the table today. Just for the record, not on the table today.
Didn't want to bring a rain cloud to the discussion. I'm just asking all possibilities.
Any other comments? Thank you very much for your time. A roll call, please.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Thank you. We have just approved the proposal from Anderson, Exchain, and Westrick to provide a building evaluation assessment for Hunter Community Center. Can't wait to see what the results are. It's going to be fun. Next up will be consideration of approving the renewal of the janitorial service contract for the City of Clawson Municipal Building, Hunter Community Center and Blair Memorial Library with Stone Clean LLC.
Still have to clean it.
So, Madam Mayor, Nick, he championed this one, so I'll let him brief.
Motion, please.
Madam Mayor, I moved the 2023-2027 contract for the janitorial service contract for the City of Clawson Municipal Building, Hunter Community Center, and Blair Memorial Library with Stone Clean LLC.
I'll support.
Thank you. Nick, please enlighten us.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, Council, I'll just run through the memo that was in the packet real quick, and then we can talk about any questions you may have. So the contract between the City of Clawson and Stone Clean LLC expired at the end of 2022 and went into a month-to-month agreement for services. Stone Clean LLC presented a new contract to the city with an increase in services, which there is a table below in that memo outlining the previous contract and the one that you'll be reviewing today. The increase from the previous contract to the current one being presented showed an increase of 18%. The city and Stone Clean met twice to discuss their services and their requested increase. The presented increase includes the additional cleaning of 4 more offices, increased compensation for the ordering of cleaning supplies, and also factored in economic factors. Staff reached out to 2 other cleaning service companies and conducted walkthroughs with both of those companies, and we have attached their proposals as well. The contract with IMK Cleaning Services is month to month with a cost of $5,050 for all 3 buildings. The contract with Janitorial is a 1-year contract with a monthly cost of $7,514.82 for all 3 buildings. The proposed contract with Stone Clean is a 5-year contract with a monthly cost starting at $3,200 in 2023, and by 2027, it will be $3,851.53.
When is the last time we gave them an increase in their rate?
So their last contract was approved in 2020, and that contract had 2% increases year to year.
Okay, thank you. I've always heard great things about the cleaning services here. The people, anyone that I've ever spoken with in the building has always said they do a great job. So just to put that out there. Does anyone have any questions?
I don't.
Would anyone else like to speak regarding this?
I want to say something.
I thought you might. You're here, right?
Yeah.
Please just state your name
Yeah,
and
sure. I'm Adam Schisler, and that's my wife back there. I don't like public speaking, but this is actually pretty easy for me because this is mostly a chance for me to rave about her. I'm involved. I do an adequate job. I'm the sort of cleaner that like you guys aren't going to have any complaints with. I follow through with the contract. I'll get the job done for you. But like, she is amazing at what she does. She's passionate about it. And she really cares about the city. She will do all these little extra things for the city that's not in the contract every single day. Small little things. There'll be a cup on the table. It's not in the contract. We're not supposed to touch it, but she's like, I can't leave that there. And she throws it away. If she sees a doorknob starting to fall off, she doesn't need to contact DPW or Nick or or Gina. You know, she's like, here's a screwdriver. Let's get that doorknob tightened back up. And that's not in our contract. We don't want to be obligated to do it, but it's something that she brings to the table. So I just wanted to say she's awesome. I hope you guys approve this. It helps that we're the most affordable. I want to highlight that too. That's it. Yeah, thanks for the time.
Affordable is good. You're an excellent cheerleader, even if your cleaning skills are not equivalent. That's good to know.
Good, excellent.
Right, there you go. Thank you for coming in today.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Sampson. Yes. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes. Congratulations. We're pleased to renew your contract, and thank you for all that you do. Next up is consideration of the first reading to an ordinance to adopt a sign ordinance to provide standards for the erection and maintenance of signs.
Madam Mayor,
Yes.
I move to approve the first reading of the ordinance to adopt a sign ordinance to provide standards for the erection and maintenance of the signs.
Support.
Good evening.
Good evening. So I can give you a little bit of a summary of what you're looking at here. My name is Joe Tangari. I'm with Giffords Webster. We are the city's planning consultant. So what you're looking at is a very thorough overhaul of the city's sign ordinance. We set out to make our sign ordinance easier for the city to administer and less aggravating for business owners and professionals to navigate and understand. So with the amount of signage, while the amount of signage that's permitted by the new ordinance is generally about the same as the current ordinance, The new ordinance does provide greater flexibility for how a business might use the sign area that's available to it, particularly with regard to wall signs. The content of the ordinance has been reorganized into a structure that's simpler to navigate. It groups like content with like content. It's upfront about intent and applicability and what's not permitted. Electronic signs are now much more clearly regulated. There really wasn't a set of standards for those before. We sought greater clarity in the regulations, how to measure signs, how to light signs, where certain regulations apply. We eliminated some redundancies. We plugged a few holes where a particular area of town was not addressed simply by omission. We had this listing of street segments, and there were a couple of strange choices of wording in those street segments where certain regulations applied that kind of excluded certain street segments, and we had to kind of figure out exactly what standards were supposed to apply there. So we've worked on plugging all those holes and getting rid of the redundancies. We strengthened our maintenance standards. We clarified our standards for non-conforming signs and when they need to be replaced. You might recall, if you're familiar with the sign ordinance, that our current sign ordinance states that all non-conforming signs must be removed by a certain date, and that date was almost 10 years ago. So we've adopted a more remove-as-we-go approach, which I think is more politically feasible and just much less harsh on our property owners and business owners. Next, one of the reasons that we started this overhaul of the sign ordinance in the first place is a legal decision by the Supreme Court from several years ago called Gilbert versus Reed. And in that case, the Supreme Court placed limits on our ability to regulate signs by content with a particular focus on temporary signs. And so we've established a new paradigm for regulating temporary signs that speaks only to the time, place, and manner of display, such as the total area permitted, and is completely content neutral, so that we're in line with the current case law. And finally, as we pulled the ordinance apart, it became clear that there were a couple sets of standards that were more related to site plans. So we've moved those to the zoning ordinance, and that's actually the next item on your agenda. So if you have any questions or comments, here to address them.
When you were talking about, I don't remember what the words you used, but the old signs, the sign change, right? So there were structure size changes a while ago, and I know that caused some problem for some people. So are you now saying that as long as someone doesn't change their sign, they're good to leave it as is until, right? Is that what you're saying moving forward?
In terms of the non-conforming signs, so signs that once were legal but no longer could be established at that size. So what we're saying is that when you are addressing the signs on your site, that's when you have to make a change to become compliant with our ordinance. We're not going to go out and tell you, hey, the deadline is approaching, you have to replace your sign.
So if they want to make a change to said sign, then the new rules apply.
Exactly,
New standards
yes.
apply. Okay, thank you.
Precisely.
That's fair.
Yep.
And the sizes are still, 32 square feet for a 50-foot frontage?
Yes, we've left the sizes intact, so we're not making anybody newly non-conforming with this new sign ordinance.
That would be fun, right?
That we were very careful about that.
Do we have any other questions?
Yeah, Joe, did we move the murals to a different decision point? Because since I was on planning commission, I kind of went through this with you. So did that mural go to another body to talk about?
That is going to be upcoming,
Yep.
so yeah, we will be working on that.
And then the historic elements still stayed on here, right? Where we
Yes.
define historic signs?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And so illumination, so any LED, what are they called, trace lighting?
The like LED.
Yeah.
But those are not permitted. Yeah.
Okay, so they can be used but not visible directly, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay.
You could use it to backlight something, but you can't put it in our faces.
Okay, and then any sign that is LED,
They have some brightness regulations and dimming regulations. So a sign, an electronic sign, needs to be bright during the daytime in order to be seen in the daylight. However, if it stays at that same level of brightness during the nighttime, it's blinding to someone going by on the road. So we've got some automatic dimming standards that are in there. All these signs come with automatic dimmers. They can be programmed for this now. And we want those signs to go to dim if in lower light conditions. And then also, if the sign starts to malfunction, it needs to be turned off.
Okay.
So that it doesn't become a distraction.
And just specifically, the signs that are in front of the elementary schools that are in the R1, R2, are those non-compliant now for this ordinance? Or?
So strictly speaking, they're non-conforming. However, they do belong to a separate governmental jurisdiction. So we don't have any authority over them. But strictly speaking, they would be non-conforming with our ordinance. Yeah.
Okay. And are there any similar signs for any places of worship within?
No, not ones that are that don't front on a road where they could have them. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Well, just one other thing. So now that we're moving forward, that as time progresses, so what is the trigger that would have the sign come up as need to be in compliance?
Basically, if you're modifying the sign,
Okay.
or replacing it, yeah, you would
Okay.
need to come into
Does it have
compliance.
to be the site plan, any modification to the site plan, would that also trigger the need for the sign compliance?
Yeah, if you were modifying a site plan and that involved moving a sign, then yeah, you would.
But just not to the sign, but to the building itself. If you were changing a facade of the building,
If
and
you
then,
were
by the
doing,
way,
let's say you had a ground sign and you were doing a facade change on the building, that would not necessarily implicate.
thinking
the-
pole sign.
The ground sign. Oh, the pole sign.
Yeah.
For a site plan, we would require that you remove a pole sign. Yeah. In fact, we've got a site plan that's coming in very soon where we're going to be requiring that. So.
Are we going to require updates if they say if a repair for a sign is better than 50% of the cost of the sign?
Yeah, that would trigger a compliance with the new ordinance, yeah.
Is that it? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Shepherd?
yes.
Councilmember Tinlin?
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson?
Thank you. We have now had our first reading of an ordinance to adopt our sign ordinance, and then we will have our second reading.
Yep, I'll publish it with the next meeting. All these, that'll go for all these in a row if they pass.
Great. Next item will be consideration of the first reading of an ordinance to amend the City of Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34, Article X, Section 34-3.1N, to permit restaurants in parts of the BRD-2 district and further permit drive-throughs as a special land use in the BRD-2 district.
So moved.
Support.
Would you please explain to people who do not have a clue what a BRD-2 district is?
So the BRD-2 district is along Crooks and a portion of Maple, and that's north of Elwood. So kind of a historically industrial area along Crooks, and then along Maple, it's more kind of a
Madam Mayor,
mixed commercial.
If I may interrupt, we skipped one.
I was going to say.
We're on eight, we're on
Oh,
G,
oh,
you're
the-
reading off of H.
Well, all right, let's continue with this, if that's all right, and then turn around.
G.
Do we go backwards, or do we have to?
You can just, I would just keep going. You're not
All
gonna
right,
mess it
okay,
down.
we just
Thanks,
got
sorry
a
for
point of order, we
trying
gotta
to
go
keep
back.
it
They look the same to me too, or I would have caught it, so.
Oh, wait a second.
So BRD stands for Business Renewal District. We have two of them. BRD 1 is on South Main, and BRD 2 is over in that area I was just talking about.
Crooks and Maple.
Yeah, exactly. So, historical development pattern, as I was saying, along Crooks is primarily industrial, and then along Maple is kind of a mixed commercial industrial. There's kind of a lot of things going on there. And back, I think it was 2 master plans ago, possibly even 3, the future land use map called for the establishment of a district in that area, which would create this business renewal district. And they set out a vision for it. And it calls for this sort of campus-like environment and, businesses that will support the high employment uses over there. So your kind of legacy industrial that might have a lot of people working at it. And one of the things that's in the district now up along Maple is several restaurants. But for whatever reason, when the district was originally adopted, restaurants were not included in the list of permitted uses for the district. So all those restaurants, Osaka and National Coney Island, Apavini, all of them are technically non-conforming uses in that district. We had an inquiry about the National Coney Island, possibly a rebranding, and they were interested in also doing a drive-through there. And that kind of sent us back to the ordinance to say, all right, well, how does this work? And, well, it doesn't because restaurants aren't a permitted use there. So we brought it to the Planning Commission and we asked them, how do we feel about this? We've got some restaurants in the district. The district intent statement says that there should be businesses that support the high employment uses in the district. Well, I think that it could be argued that a restaurant supports the high employment uses in the district. And the Planning Commission preferred to permit carry-out and sit-down restaurants as a principal permitted use in the district. So you can do that there as long as you're north of Anderson Court. So these large industrial sites, we're not really looking at those sites. We're looking north of Anderson Court at all the smaller sites where we already have some of these restaurants. And then for drive-through facilities, making that a special land use so that we can exercise some discretion as to where those might go. Like, for instance, if we're backing up to residential, we might not want a drive-through there. But if we're not, if we're backing up to other non-residential uses, then it might be appropriate, particularly if I have a site that's the right size. So that's the direction we wound up going in, is restaurants as a principal permitted use unless they have a drive-through, in which case that drive-through is a special land use.
So has there been any developments for anybody who's come that has had a business there that can't establish themselves because of this? Is that what you were saying?
Yeah, the inquiry that we were getting about that one site in particular would not have been able to establish itself. It was coming in with a drive-through as part of its proposal, and this would give them a path. It's not a guarantee because it is a special land use, but it at least gives them a path. And then, let's say one of the restaurants that's there wanted to expand. As a non-conforming use, they would have difficulty doing that right now. Okay. So if we permit them in the district, that suddenly becomes a non-issue. Now they're a permitted use, and they can
So the gas
expand and
station used to
modify.
have a Mexican restaurant inside of it.
Sure,
It's
yeah.
since been closed for a number of years. Were they not able to open just because it wasn't in their business model or because of this ordinance?
Well, I don't know the story there necessarily, but given that the restaurant that was once there has been closed for a long time now, they wouldn't be able to open another one.
Yeah.
But if they wanted to, if this passes, if they wanted to, then they would have that option.
Okay. The other thing is that area, was that north of the flight approach to the airport? Or
It is, yeah. Yeah,
Okay.
there's like a triangle at the end of the runway that extends over into Clawson, and that triangle is slightly south of most of the properties on Maple. I think it extends into one or two of them.
Okay, and just crazy idea that if, say, somebody were able to establish a drive-through restaurant there with speaker and so forth, whether or not the radio frequencies or whatever technology they have, would that be non-compliant with FAA or FCC or whatever will be governing over there?
No, typically they're hardwired.
Okay.
They're not, and even if they were, it would probably be on a cellular frequency, which wouldn't interfere.
Okay, so they wouldn't have a
yeah.
risk of interfering with any, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, it's, you never know, right? So I'd like to not have anything land where they shouldn't, right? So.
They're regulated by FCC anyway.
Is it FAA or FCC?
FCC.
FCC, yeah. Okay.
And the FAA both probably, but FCC for frequencies.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
Other questions, concerns?
Yeah, just from what you're laying out here, it sounds like you get two parts to this. One is bringing businesses that are currently non-compliant into compliance by modifying the ordinance.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
The other part's the drive-through issue, that if it were to be added, it would require a special use.
That's correct.
Now, at this point, how does that fall in with your bound, in other words, if your back boundary is a residential area, then you'd have to apply for a special land use to the planning commission, or what's the mechanism for that?
Yeah, any drive-through use in the district would have to apply for a special land use and go before the planning commission with the site plan. And the special land use standards in our zoning ordinance have a set of criteria that a plan must meet in order to be approved. And those generally speak to the use's compatibility with surrounding sites. So if they designed their drive-through properly and judiciously, they may have a plan that can be located adjacent to residential property. However, if they don't, they may have a plan that gets rejected on those grounds because the way they've designed it is not compatible with neighboring residential. If there were noise or light concerns, for instance, we might ask for a redesign or deny.
If I recall, used to be, I thought that you've got the motel there, that was also a permitted use. That does not change, right?
That does not change, no. Yeah.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Tinlin?
Yes.
No, be clear, we're voting on H.
Yes.
Okay.
We're not being
Councilor-
clear tonight, first of all, so don't even start.
Yeah, we're doing really well tonight. Councilmember Anderson?
Yes.
Mayor Milan?
Yes,
Councilmember Sampson?
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd?
Yes.
great.
you.
So that concludes the
G.
first reading of our ordinance on drive-throughs. We're going to now go to item G, which is consideration of the first reading of an ordinance to amend the City of Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34, Article X, Section 34-4.7 to revise drive-through standards and Section 4.52 to add standards for gas stations.
Okay, I alluded to this before.
So moved.
Oh, right.
Thank you.
You need a motion. You need a motion.
So moved. Got it.
I'll make the motion.
Oh, we got the motion made.
I'll second it.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks.
We're consistent.
We'll keep her in mind.
So I alluded to this before. We had some of these standards in the sign ordinance, and they're really site plan standards. So we're moving them to the zoning ordinance, and we've included the full set of drive-through standards here because we did make a few little tweaks just for protection of the public welfare in there. But for the most part, this is what you've got, just slightly enhanced right now.
Any questions? No?
What kind of changes are you going to make for gas stations?
Well, we're really not making many changes. We're just moving content from the sign ordinance to the zoning ordinance because it's more suited to the zoning ordinance. They're really zoning standards rather than sign ordinance standards.
So like the Citgo over on 14 in Rochester probably wouldn't have to do anything because it's,
No, nobody's going to have to do anything to
Okay.
comply with this.
or the one on 15 in Crooks.
That's what we want to hear. Nobody has to do anything to comply with this.
If I recall, I'm trying to go back through it, and this, from what I read it this weekend, there's TVs. Is this part of in here, or maybe I was thinking something else?
Yeah, right now, we don't permit the TVs, and that's been maintained in this, yeah.
Okay, so there's a couple of stations that have them, right?
I believe so, yeah, and I think they're just non-conforming at this point.
Okay.
Any other concerns, questions?
No, I like getting my cheddar news from the one station that's on the other side of the street from me, so.
Well, that's a good question. So they'll be non-compliant, will we require them to comply, or will they be grandfathered in?
I mean, if they ever replace their pumps, I suppose they would be required to comply, yeah.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson. Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Thank you. That completes our first reading on an ordinance to revise drive-through standards and add standards for gas stations, which we're all in favor of standards. Next item is consideration of the first reading of an ordinance to amend the City of Clawson Code of Ordinances, Chapter 34, Article X, Section 34-5.12, to establish accessory building appearance standards.
So moved as written.
Thank you.
Support.
Very well done.
Okay. Thank you. I'm just gonna keep going here. So this is a response to a request from the building department. There's a kind of a generic reference in our zoning ordinance to compatibility of accessory buildings. And there was well, what does that mean? Question that we kept getting. And in response to that, we wrote this paragraph for the zoning ordinance. Now, it's not especially long or involved or complicated, but it does give the building department something to work with in terms of determining the compatibility of an accessory building other than a shed. You can buy a little shed at Home Depot and put it in your backyard. But if you're building a garage or something larger than a shed, there is now a actual compatibility standard that speaks to the exterior finish materials and colors of an accessory building matching or complementing the principal building. So we're not putting, a standing seam corrugated metal building next to a home with, a mixture of brick and traditional siding or something like that. And it's really stemmed from a lot of sort of borderline requests that we've had over the last few years where people wanted to put up, strange windowless boxes that were just they just didn't look at all like the house or anything else around them. And, our inspector was looking at them and saying, does this meet the compatibility standard? So we were just trying to give him more to hang his hat on, basically.
Could you read that paragraph? Would you?
Sure. The exterior finish materials and colors of any accessory building other than a shed as defined in this ordinance, and shed is defined in our ordinance, shall match or complement the principal building. Where determination of compatibility cannot be reached by the building department, the application may be referred to the planning commission for a final determination. So if it's such a borderline case that the building inspector doesn't feel that he alone can make the determination, it can be referred to a body that can make a public deliberation on it.
Are you concerned at all that that's kind of subjective, right? Compliments, right? And a lot of new use of materials and stuff these days, that we never saw in residential home type settings. And just curious, what's the protection against that? Should someone have an instance that whomever the inspector is states, I don't know, I don't think that works. And then they're like, it works. Some people like their colors across the color wheel and others like to mix them up, right? And it's not ours to say. So how do we protect ourselves against that?
Right. So there's a few different responses to that. One is that the complement terminology that's in there is in there specifically to, complement the match terminology. So we don't necessarily need it to be a 100% match to the building. If you've got a brick mock tutor or something, you don't need to build a brick garage. Like, we get it. That's kind of cost prohibitive in a lot of cases. But we're trying to give him something to look at in terms of figuring out whether that compatibility standard we already have, which is incredibly vague, is met. So we're pointing him to the finished materials and colors. If someone, let's say, he denies a building on the basis of compatibility, they do have a route to appeal an administrative decision through the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that would be, a public decision made by a public body at a public hearing, and that's kind of where any decision by an administrative body would go. So it's really got the same process available to it as anything else. It is somewhat subjective, and I think that unless we want to become architecturally prescriptive, it has to be somewhat subjective. We have to give people a little bit of wiggle room and ourselves a little bit of room for interpretation.
Yeah, I'm fine with, when people purchase something, they have the right to do, right? And of course, you have to allow them that. I always want to look towards the what if at the extreme, not at like a person taking advantage of an extreme, but just as an extreme that would not be good for a neighbor or something like that.
Sure.
Like we have to consider those things too, but you want to give the person the wherewithal to make their own choice, but also figuring out how you hold it to it, right? I remember being on planning and they painted a building red, an industrial building that was painted red, and the planner at the time did not, do you remember this?
Yeah.
Did not like the red, and it was a 1,000%.
Well, it wasn't on the site plan, right?
Approval, it was great,
yeah.
That was a subjective thing. I don't like that red, and I just don't want to see that again.
Sure,
That's just
yeah.
not
No, I
cool, because
understand
it was clean, it was not scratchy, I don't remember what was there before, but I think to this day, it still looks good, and you wouldn't drive down the street and go, oh my gosh, that building's red, because it was a nice color red, right?
Sure.
By all appearances, so I was just curious, just for that reason, so that there's not that extreme, and so that someone can actually select what they want to do, and we don't have to worry about us or them fighting it out in the end, and that it's not someone's personal style that is
Right.
the subjection, right? On either side, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
And this ordinance is taken up from a discussion with one person. I would never want to go into a room and try to talk with 9 people on a commission going, what color you like? Because none of us are going to be alive that long
Yeah.
before all of them agree. And what's the difference between a metal garage and a metal-sided garage? The new metal garages they have are really pretty good garages.
Yeah,
And they're pretty fancy.
they could be designed on the exterior in a way that makes them fit just fine. It's more a matter of, how they're meeting this standard, basically.
Yeah. I'd rather see this delineated to say, these are what you can put up, instead of saying, hey, go talk to these 9 people, and first you got to get through metal garages and what kind of siding, and now we're going to pick a color. It could be years before you get your garage put up.
True.
Honestly, I think it's pretty unlikely that it's going to get referred to the planning commission very often, but.
Joe, because I sat through this in planning commission as well,
Sure.
wasn't this also driven kind of with the pole barn constructions much cheaper than the stick garage, and you're getting more of those type of requests coming through?
That was part of
Yeah.
the driver behind it. Yeah, we were getting people who were looking to do the least expensive pole barn they could possibly find, and it just was not looking like it belonged in a residential neighborhood.
Or a Quonset hut or something like that?
So, not far off. Yeah, we definitely had a few of those.
Interesting. Okay. I just, if someone had wanted to build a greenhouse, right, and it's all glass, but it's attached to the house, it's not necessarily in complement, right, with this type of materials, but it's,
But it still could fit the context of the neighborhood,
Okay.
exactly. yeah.
Okay.
That's not, yeah.
it's not about intended use, it's about the appearance.
Right, exactly.
Well, we need to protect the citizens so they don't have to have extra expenses trying to do this, you know, and trying to appease a planning commission and say, well, you know, I don't like that color blue, how about this one?
Yeah.
And I don't like the pole barn look, even though it looks like a garage.
Well, we're also going to be limited with the ordinance for allowable space to be used on properties. So that will
Sure,
also
yeah.
limit what they're going to be able to build, right? Which was just passed this past year, right, if I remember. Was it this past year? Or was it?
I think it was longer than that. But yeah, there are limitations
Limits
on
on
the
development
amount
of the property
Yeah.
itself, so, okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
thank you. Roll call, please.
Mayor Milan,
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson,
No,
Councilmember, sorry?
no.
That's what I thought you
You
said.
shocked him.
It's the first time today. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin,
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Motion
Okay.
passes.
That completes the first reading of the ordinance to establish accessory building appearance standards, and that, again, will also come back on our agenda in the future.
See this in 2 weeks.
And since Joe's doing such a stellar job presenting to us this evening, we're going to give him one more opportunity to wow us with consideration of receiving and filing the 2022 Planning Commission Annual Report for the City of Clawson.
And Mayor, move the 2022 Planning Commission Annual Report for the City of Clawson be received and filed with the city clerk.
Support.
Thank you.
Pretty straightforward. The Planning Commission Annual Report is a report summarizing what the Planning Commission did last year. This is required to be produced and made a report made to City Council every year under the Planning Enabling Act. And the document breaks down into a few different sections. One is it tells us who's on the Planning Commission. It tells us who their support staff is, what their activities looked like last year, how many development reviews they did, where they were, what the outcome was. Talks about all the zoning amendments that they worked on last year. A little bit about the master plan work that they did. The capital improvement plan, of course, was done for the first time last year. Some work about the sustainability committee, which was established by the Planning Commission back in 2021. And then a little look to the year ahead, very briefly, just saying, hey, we're going to keep moving forward, evaluating our master plan and our zoning ordinance. And then we have finally a summary of all the agenda items that appeared on our Planning Commission agendas last year.
Planning Commission was very busy.
Yeah, they had a lot of meetings last year.
It's a great place to learn and get familiar with this community. Is it not, Mr. Tinlin?
Yes, it is.
So thank you to everyone who serves on the planning, who has served on the planning and cycled through in the past year for putting the time in. You have some really passionate people on that board and commission, and some people with some good historical knowledge and some new blood in there too, even sitting in the audience today that hasn't even got to start yet, but will be an exceptional addition. So we really appreciate those who take the time to serve on our boards and commissions and in any other place in this community, but we appreciate the report. Does anyone have any comments or concerns?
I just have one question. I know they're getting ready to look at the master plan this year. Have we got that draft communication to the council yet, or did we not send it to us yet?
We're going to be working on it on the 28th at the Planning Commission.
Very good, thank you.
Great. Any other? Okay, Joe, I think you've done an exceptional job this evening, and we're going to say thank you for your time. Go have a seat. Make yourself comfortable.
Well, thank you all.
Or do whatever you want, because the camera won't see you, so thank you so much. So next item
Wanna vote on
is- Pardon me? Oh, yeah, voting, sorry.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes, we have now accepted the Planning Commission annual report. Thank you. We're going to move on to item K, which was a motion made at the beginning of the meeting that was added on, and I do not have the verbiage for it. So tell us what we're doing next on item K, please, Councilmember
You got it, ma'am.
Can I
Tinley.
do that?
Yes.
So the motion was around the city council organization, changes for open items. We still, I think, have a couple things to do. And also, when I was doing my onboarding, it came up a few times that we have a lot of these standing commissions. An alignment maybe of council members to have more leadership role, or at least attend to these commissions. So there's two points I want to do. Is one, if we can have a discussion, like a lot of other cities, if you look at Troy, for example, they actually have council members sitting on the planning commission as a liaison. So I thought that was a good idea. A few of you had said that was an idea that you had thought as well, so I want to have a discussion around that. And I do believe that we still have an open item for organizational assignment or appointment still that we have to address and talk about. I believe that's the mayor pro tem. So those are the two things I want to talk about tonight.
Okay, so which would you like to start first? You're
Which would the
spearheading
body
this?
like to talk about first, the easy one or
Is there
the,
a second?
oh, we have to have a second.
There's no actual motion, it's just a discussion.
So I want a discussion
Topic,
first before we
yes.
maybe have a motion that maybe we need a special meeting to cover all this, or we address it individually, but I just wanted to bring that up.
You want to make a motion to do a special meeting to discuss them two items?
Yep. I think, because I don't want to take a lot of time here, but again, I'm new about special meetings or workshops, so I look for guidance from the council members.
Let's make a special meeting.
So moved.
Support that.
For just those two items?
Yeah, it'll give us time to, it'll be a
doesn't-
short meeting that we can just talk about two subjects.
I'd rather, if we're going to hold a meeting and have, pay for the resources we have to pay for to be here, and then to have people come in and put in their time, I'd like it to have more meat to it, if that's possible, and I don't think there would not be a slew of things we could add to it. I'm not opposed to a special meeting. I just want it to be for more than something that's going to possibly take 15 minutes, just in respect of everyone's time. Yes, sir, Mr. Riker.
Would you be interested in having it for the next council meeting in February
Have it where?
on the agenda?
Next council meeting.
I mean, if we're just going to add it to an agenda, we can just address it now and be done with it. Like, there's no need to wait if that's what we're going to do, in my opinion. I mean,
Well, I hear some of the things Mr. Tillman's saying, that there's a lot of commissions that we should be appointed to. We need a list of what commissions we have. And then everybody could be prepared to say, hey, I'll do that one, I'll do this one. So it'll give us a couple weeks to, or at least a week, to figure out how our schedules work with a certain commission.
I'm not opposed to having a member of council represent on a board or commission. I think it's a good thing, but how does it affect with our charter the way it is now? Because we have specific numbers of seats on these bodies. I think, an ad hoc person who just goes and represents, that would be something that would probably not be outside of our charter or what we're allowed to do. But other than that, I mean, we do have a couple openings on boards and commissions. If someone wants to sit on one,
Yeah,
I
so
suppose we
certain
can place
boards-
you.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Certain boards and certain commissions that we have obviously are outlined by statutory authority. And as such, we are limited in the things that we can do. We would have to look at the Planning Enabling Act, Zoning Enabling Act, and the like. We also have certain limitations from our own charter. We have a provision in the charter that says, for example, there can be no standing committees of council. That's not what we're advocating, but you just for thought. So I imagine whichever decision the council makes will, the administration will have to do some legwork as far as, research and figuring out exactly the parameters of what council, can and should do, depending on its wishes. So some time would be helpful. It can be the next meeting. If you're leaving that item, you can add it to an agenda, and we'll do, given this discussion, perhaps some at least, legwork. One of the items, though, obviously is simple with respect to a motion for Mayor Pro Tem. I would advocate that you just deal with that today, if at all possible.
Yeah, you can do that right now.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your vetting us to be able to do that right now. That's very generous.
So we have a motion and a second on
The special meeting on those two topics with no date assigned.
Right.
But that's the motion.
So Councilmember Anderson, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I mean, we can, to decide how we're going to interact with these planning commissions, yeah, we'll have to decide who's going to go where. So that, yeah, I think that would require some time.
So, but before we can decide that, we have to determine what's allowable. So unless we just want to make a very general commitment, each one of us, to take on a board and/or commission ourselves and just go and sit in the audience and represent, right, and report back, because that's all we're really looking for, I believe,
Yeah,
is
that
just
wasn't
to
the
have
intent, right? To have, I
more
believe in
interaction.
leadership by example, right?
Yes.
So I think having that council member, like I got a lot of information when I sat with the Charter Commission just recently. So, and I know other communities do that. I think Troy does that in the same way. That they're not sitting on the board.
Right.
But they're there as a leadership and to have
liaison.
interaction. Liaison,
right.
when they
Not
have the
voting.
point where they can talk.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in that sense,
Not
that
uncommon.
obviously makes it a lot simpler than some of the other mandates, absolutely.
So then that's basically a conversation to see where's your interest, right? I try and attend various boards and commission meetings myself when I have my time allots, right? And if it doesn't allow me to show up, I generally watch them, just so I know what's going on. But it is important that we let the boards and commissions know that we are not a separate body, so that if a recent incident was one of the boards wanted something sent to city council, so city council was aware, and it turned into what seemed like a thing when it shouldn't have been a thing. They asked for something to be sent, send it. Like, what's the big deal, right? It was informational in purposes, and we should have that. There should be dialogue, right? And they shouldn't think there's a impediment to getting to council. We're right here, we're available, all of us, I'm sure, phone, email, whatever, but creating a joint body would be great. I mean, communication between the bodies, which I think we could also accomplish by having quarterly or meetings a few times a year, right, with all the bodies. So we talk about the important things that are going on, what they're addressing in planning and zoning, how it's going to come to us, how it's going to affect us, and then maybe have conversations to see how we're all looking at all of these items that are coming before us together in a joint conversation, in just a workshop type format, so that we can have open conversation, which will also get to what you're looking for here, I think, which is connection.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Yeah, just again, with my interaction the last 14 days, I see that we're trying to have more interaction with the school board, for example. So that inspired me, along with I do plan to go to all the commissions and the boards just to understand what they're doing. So, and then I looked across the communities, and they're doing similar programs of some type of structure.
Then I would like to, I know we have a motion on, do we want to?
I'd like to amend that motion, so we do have some, if Mr. Shepherd would second it, make it for next Tuesday at 1900 for 1 hour.
What's 1900?
Well,
7 o'clock?
Meeting at 7 o'clock next Tuesday.
We have a charter commission
I
meeting
can't,
at
because there's a
6:30.
charter and
Planning
then.
commission,
We
7:30.
can meet in the other room.
There's a planning commission, charter commission both.
I would say,
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Ricker.
I would suggest that this would be a good item for the next meeting. It gives us time to provide greater context, the list. You guys will have it the Thursday before the meeting. There'll be plenty of time. It can be a discussion if motions come from there. I think we've gone this far without it. I'm not sure we need to have a special meeting specifically just for that item. But we'll do the legwork to make sure that it's on the next meeting in February.
I'd like to amend your motion to include a special meeting that includes all boards and commission members, a joint meeting of boards and commission members.
I'll amend it that way.
For next Tuesday, when there's already.
Doesn't have to be, no.
Okay,
not
because
next
that was
Tuesday.
put down in the,
No.
so we're not
no,
going to have.
There's no second to that
yeah,
one,
no,
to that
I-
portion,
Okay.
to the amendment.
All right, just trying to keep up with where we're at.
so
Evolution.
I would support your amendment to your motion.
My,
So not your amendment,
The mayor's amendment to
Mayor's
your
amendment to
original
your
motion. Mr.
motion.
So a special
I
meeting for,
so you got to vote on amending
On
my
amendment
motion.
first.
okay.
And I'm so sorry for this trouble.
No, no. Glorious,
Oh,
actually.
this is not trouble, this is a work in progress.
this is,
We got a motion to change my motion.
I can describe it briefly. There's a motion on the floor that you made. You made an amendment, there was no second. Mayor made an amendment to your motion, there was a second to that,
Yep, now
to
you
her
vote on
amendment.
that.
So we're voting on the amendment of the mayor first,
yes.
Right.
Which is,
which is to include all
To
other
invite all the
boards
commissions.
and commissions for a special meeting, no date.
Well, let's say that we want it within the next 30 days.
There you go. If there's a second to that one too, Mr. Shepherd.
Yep, that's fine.
I vote on that.
That would be a mega meeting, right?
It would be a mega meeting, and it would be.
Be like a big crowd.
We used to have them.
But I don't
What's the
understand the point of
The
it.
the agenda would be to be determined, but it would include a highlight. Let's say Councilmember Tinlin just stated he wants to meet with boards and commissions to see what boards and commissions do. It would be great if each board and commission gave a brief highlight synopsis of what they do, and then could tell us what things are on the plate currently. And then we could all talk about those things and then see if there are any areas we could all partner moving forward to see what our future goals are. Does that make sense to people? It makes perfect sense to me.
We got a motion and a second, let's vote on it.
On the amendment.
The amendment, yeah.
And we can work on the agenda, right? Like, it doesn't have to be
Sure.
specifically that, we're just flying
And
right
as a
now.
council member, can we help scope out the agenda? Are we allowed to or no?
Well,
We got,
the original understanding was that assign council members as liaisons to these respective committees. And now it's turned into a mega meeting.
well, the committee's introducing themselves to the
Okay.
council so they know what they do, and then they can, part of the decision-making of where you want to possibly liaison?
Yep.
Okay, that's kind of how I read that.
Thank
so.
you.
Okay.
All right, let's vote on that amendment.
So the vote on the amendment, you call the question. Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Okay.
Now we have the original motion as amended.
As
Could you
amended.
read it, please?
Special meeting within the next 30 days where each commission, board and commission will present their duties.
Okay.
That's how I have assembled it with my notes here. Does that get the gist of this all?
Functions.
Mr. Tinlin, are we going to want to vote on or assign council people to the different commissions?
I don't know if you want to do all that
Why don't we?
right away.
I would suggest we have the meeting.
Yeah.
And let's see where the boards and commissions lie. Mr. Nushai can do some investigating between now and then to see what parameters we have to enter into that type of a relationship. And then if it's tricky, then we just assign each other, or, just say, I'm really interested in this, this is what I'm gonna follow, and then we can give updates, right? We could also have someone from a board or commission come and give us regular updates as well. It could be done either way, so, but more connection between the people serving the community is definitely a good thing. You had something else?
No, now we're going to vote.
You call the question. Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Okay, got this.
Okay, and then,
You're part of that? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
So that will include the scope on whether or not that's something that.
Yes,
we as
I'll
allowed.
do some background research, but I think Mr. Tinlin is correct that in the sense that if we're limiting it as far as presentation and participation, not by way of vote or being a standing member, it makes this a whole lot simpler. But nonetheless, we'll do that background work just to be so we're all on the safe side, but I'm pretty confident that we are, so.
Good deal.
so your other item?
Well, the other item is open organizational items, right? So what haven't we done since we're only a four-member council? I know we had looked at the pro tem, and that, I believe, was just 2-2 and remained the same to last year. Are we required to have that officially voted upon?
By
And is there
charter?
any other open items we have? I know this is,
By charter, we do.
Within
That
30
is-
days? No.
Yeah, by charter, with respect to the mayor pro tem. The charter requires the appointment. We don't have one. There is 5 of you. Yeah, and we have a public. What better chance to have a mayor pro tem?
and I was going to try to make this an easy meeting, too. but-
By all means.
It's not hard.
So then I'll just ask, is there anyone interested in serving as mayor pro tem?
Sure.
Got 2 on that side? And how about this side? No. Okay, so that would then ask, would you please state independently why we should select you as our mayor pro tem? If you don't mind.
Because I'm the old guy. I think I bring a lot. I think I'll never let you guys astray on breaking a law, because I'm not scared to point that out if you haven't noticed. I do have a vast background in Robert's rules and keeping on track. And I think I can provide an extra hand for you to organize our meetings and get us going. And we can split up some of the talking to each other and seeing how everybody feels. And I think I bring a pretty good set of skills to this meeting.
Thank you. Councilmember Anderson?
Yes, I think pretty much everybody on this council is professionally capable of being the mayor pro tem. I'm just putting forward that I think the city, based on the results of the election and subsequent events to that, are looking for a change and a fresh face perhaps in that position. So.
Do we have any comments from this side of the table?
I always will. So for me, I thought about this a lot because I did binge watch YouTube sessions for about a year of all the city councils before I came here. And really for me, what it is the capability, right, and the desire. So we have two council members, not one. But one of the other ones is really the community standing of those councilmen as far as integrity, transparency, and trust. So that's why I did want to have a discussion while we have a public audience, because that's how I'm going to weight my vote.
Any nomination?
Yeah,
Okay.
So anybody can, for purposes of, anybody can make a motion, even if it is.
You just nominate, right?
Is that you
You're right,
just nominate?
motion. So, yes, I'll nominate Mr. Sampson for mayor pro tem.
I'll second it.
Yep.
any other comments, questions, concerns? No. Roll call, please.
Councilmember Anderson.
No.
Mayor Milan.
No.
Councilmember Sampson.
Yes.
Councilmember Shepherd.
Yes.
Councilmember Tinlin.
No.
Motion fails.
Do we have another motion?
The nominations.
Would someone like to make
Yep.
another motion?
I nominate Bruce Anderson for the pro tem position.
Is there support? I'll support. Roll call, please.
Mayor Milan.
Yes.
Councilmember Sampson.
No.
Councilmember Shepherd.
No.
Councilmember Tinlin.
Yes.
Councilmember Anderson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Thank you. We've now named a mayor pro tem, and I would like to say congratulations to Councilmember Anderson, and I would really like to say to Councilmember Sampson, thank you so much for being willing to serve. We really appreciate all of the good traits that you do have, because you do have many. And I would just say that as the person who sits next to you. But given some of the, it was just the decision that I personally had to make on this, but I do respect you and I appreciate all the great qualities that you bring forth to this commission. So, is there anyone else who has anything to say regarding this matter? No, then we'll go back to the agenda. Do we have any old unfinished business? Okay, then we'll move on to public comments for items not on the agenda. If you're here this evening and you'd like to speak towards anything that we have not already spoken about today, please feel free to join us at the podium.
That we have spoken about either.
Yeah.
Could be anything.
Good evening.
Good evening to the Honorable Mayor Milan and new Mayor Pro Tem and the rest of this honorable body. My name is Christopher Johnson, and I am the new District and Constituent Service Director for Senator Mallory McMorrow. I just wanted to make my appearance here to introduce myself to some of you. I did send emails out to some of you, and I just want to let you know that on behalf of the Senator's office, she sends her greetings, and she is committed to assisting the city of Clawson in whatever she can, do to help. So my information, I'll make sure that Mayor has it. If you all need to contact me or your constituents, feel free, and I'm here for you.
Thank you, Christopher. We look forward to working with you, and thank you for picking a really long meeting to sit with us through tonight.
I've been in worse.
I'm sure. I didn't say a bad meeting, I said a long meeting. Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Gonna follow right after you, sir, with a similar statement. My name is Matt. I am also a resident of Clawson, and I am the legislative director for State Representative Sharon McDonald. And she also sends her greetings to you all. And we want to just give a brief update on our work so far. It's been busy, so I'll get right to it. Her committee assignments are the following: higher education, behavioral health, energy, transportation, where she serves as the majority vice chair, and families, children, and seniors. She is an especially good legislator to reach out to with thoughts or legislative ideas about any of those issues. She also has recently begun working on moving legislation of her own, such as legislation related to protecting vulnerable adults from online sexual abuse. In doing so, our office is building relationships with lawmakers across the political spectrum. Rep. McDonald also held her first community conversation yesterday at the Troy Community Center, where we had a great turnout. We'll be holding our next community conversation in a month at the Blair Library, and we hope to see many Clawson residents. But between now and then, please do not hesitate to reach out to us. We want to hear from City Council about how we can work together to come together and serve the residents of Clawson, and we want to hear from Clawson's residents about their thoughts and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. We look forward to working with you as well. Is there anyone else? Okay, thank you. We'll close public comment and move on to the city attorney's report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of council. I just have a couple of items. One was in response to Councilmember Sampson, some meeting or so ago, asked whether myself or from my office, we ever consider doing any community meetings or making ourselves available. I think I indicated at the time that, of course, I would. We hadn't done so. I looked around to see what other attorneys, city attorneys, prosecutors do around the area. There's not much of it, but I think in talking with Chief Smith and Kelly Baus, we sort of agreed that I'll just simply join them. They already have that meeting with Clawson PD, the coffee meeting that they do, I think, about once a month or so. I'll join with them. I'll make myself available, obviously, or somebody from my office will at all those meetings. And I think there'll be a good way that if anybody has any questions whatsoever about what we do, how we do, open forum will be available to them at all times. And I think I wanted to let you know, and thank you for bringing that to my attention. I appreciate it. I think that's important. Second, unrelated, usually my brother is here. He's not here tonight. He's religious when it comes to watching council meetings, and obviously, as you know, serves the on planning and ethics committee. He's not here because he's taking care of Clawson's newest resident. His son Lawrence was born 2 days ago, and I figured I usually would, we would keep this to ourselves, except for he's Clawson's U.S. resident. I think that's something. It means something.
What was his name?
Lawrence.
Lawrence?
Yeah.
Where's the picture?
I'm sorry?
Where's the pictures?
The only one I have is a full nude, so I'm going to leave this.
I did happen to drive down the road yesterday and saw your brother and asked him about the baby. Tell us how big this baby is, because he is not little.
No, I mean, from the picture, I think they said 9 pounds and change.
Yeah.
I mean, it was ridiculous. I mean, but baby and mother are doing well, so.
That's great. Congratulations.
And my brother is doing well, of course. He's always healthy, chubby, For what it's
Brotherly
worth.
love there, I think, right?
Yes. So, thank you very much. If you have any questions, of course, I'm here. May I add one item? I was reminded today, Council Member Sampson, perhaps, or maybe you, Mayor, had asked me about votes, the number of votes required on certain motions that we have. I have done the research as part of your, and I have that opinion ready, as part of your request and your question at the time, you said, give us sort of the specific examples, that we would utilize, 3 votes as opposed to when we were just simple majority or 2/3, whatever that may be. I've done the research. I have the opinion ready. I will send that to you, later on tonight, along with examples from our charter and code of ordinances. There is a broader question there with respect to certain mandates that we have from, let's say, the OMA or other statutes that we have. That is a little cumbersome, so I'll keep working on that portion of it, just so you know. I'll give you this limited portion that we deal with on a day-to-day basis for purposes of our agenda. I just wanted to bring that up to your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is be our city manager's report, Mr. Raker.
I'm sorry, I did have a question.
Oh, sorry, I'm sorry.
It's okay. Well, Rennis, in a meeting that's very heavy toward ordinances, how are we coming on our short-term rental ordinance?
So it was brought, and we still have Joe here, but we brought it up to, I know Joe is working on it, he and I are both working on it. We presented, the concept, I should say, to the planning commission. There was some small discussion, obviously, we got, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, we got some general concept and general direction that we're going to proceed and we're going to present with them. So we're moving in as expeditious a fashion as we possibly can, I think, considering the topic, because the topic specifically, Mr. Anderson, is a little fraught when it comes to zoning. So we're going to do that work, and I think we're going to have it on the next agenda that the Planning Commission has. We're going to have that first draft for their consideration.
Okay.
Which will be great with the newest member, start, right on it.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Thank
Hey,
you.
thank you very much. Now, Mr. Raker.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. During our audit debrief, I shared I would provide the council with an update on requisite policy development as cited in the audit. Staff and I continue to make progress on these policies. I will continue to update you until completion. Once complete, those needing your approval will be agenda items. An update on the directive from January 3rd meeting to direct me to present improvement plans for playground maintenance and improvements, DDA district services, and cleanliness, garbage pickup, and cleanliness of city dumpsters, city parking lot improvements and repairs. There has been no formal progress on this other than the continued collaboration with CYBSL and the confirmation that the DDA's new trash cans will arrive this spring. The issues of dumpsters and parking lots is more complex than a dispatch from council. However, it is something that we are in the process of investigating and will provide recommendations once they are developed. For the direction of having a town hall meeting to explain what each department does, in discussion with staff, it was suggested that we bring back a series of open houses for the public. Specific dates are being identified, but tentatively, May would be the police department open house, June would be DPW, July would be the recreation department, and fire department would remain as always in October. Later this week, I'll send to council a memo providing some context of the previous 2 years' budget sessions along with the timeline for this year's budget development. Specifically, I will be asking for your availability during the week of February 27th through March 3rd for a goal-setting session for the fiscal year. Additionally, I will be requesting your availability during the weeks of April 18th to the 21st and April 24th through the 28th for budget workshops. Lastly, at a previous council meeting, I was asked to comment on the cost of the George's lawsuit. At the time, I was only able to speculate a range. The total cost of the city has been $41,550. Nick also has a couple announcements to make.
Just a couple smaller points for the public tonight. Next Tuesday, during the Planning Commission meeting, the Sustainability Committee, Clawson Naturally, will be presenting their draft framework. That meeting is again next Tuesday, February 14th at 7:30. So if you are feeling lonely on Valentine's Day and you want to join the Planning Commission, they'll be talking about the sustainability framework then. And now that we do have Mr. Scott joining the Planning Commission, we don't have a vacancy on the planning, but we do have a couple of vacancies on the ZBA. So if you're interested, want to get more involved, please fill out an application. And you can find that at thecityofclawson.com. Thank you.
Just for clarification, if you are not lonely on February 14th, you can also take a date to the Planning Commission. We wouldn't really look down on you for that either.
Absolutely.
So, just for record.
Your date would.
Your last date. Clarification on the PC vacancy and the ZBA's vacancy. Now, that was a position that was also the liaison's role?
So that's something we'll be talking about with Joe Tangaray tomorrow, is how to filter through that. I think that we're gonna have to discuss someone on the Planning Commission, see if there's interest of them joining the ZBA as a liaison between both boards. I imagine we'll probably talk about that on that 14th meeting. So again, got a fun-packed meeting for Valentine's Day.
All right.
And that's, again, is an appointment, which is made by the mayor and approved by council?
Correct. So we were going to generate interest from the Planning Commission and report who's interested, and you would make that determination.
Right, and I've made a couple of inquiries already, just so you know. So, because I knew that was needed to be taking place.
Perfect.
But we do have at least one extra seat on ZBA.
So there's
That's
one.
not a liaison.
One actual seat, and then there's two alternates. So the liaison, I believe, would fill the
Actual
seat, and then two alternates would be appointed as well.
Okay, great. Any questions for our city manager, assistant city manager?
I do.
Yes, go ahead.
We had that Hendrickson, the water bill, Mr. Rager. And I didn't see your notes that you solved it. We have a little detail, what was the cause, what was the amount? Because it was a pretty substantial amount of money that she was asking. How much did they end up paying?
I'll have to defer to the city attorney on that.
And the reason why, Mr. Sampson, that I communicated, after the city manager made determinations, I communicated that determination on account of the potential liability that the city may have. So what I would like to do, with your permission, sir, is allow me to, if you seek more information, I'm happy to provide it. Allow me to communicate with you through attorney-client privileged communication that we would have before we can, and then obviously the council would then subsequently decide whatever it wants to decide with respect to the information.
Okay.
Please, thank you.
Good enough.
Is that all you have?
I had the high rise and, did you happen to see the email about the trees, pieces of the trees falling on the guy's car?
I have not seen that, but I
I-
heard about it from someone, verbalized it with me. Like, I think Rennis did.
I
Yes,
did.
yes, she
I
did,
did.
just before the meeting.
Councilmember Simpson, the mayor did include me on an email chain based on communication that she had received from the concerned resident. I provided them with my information so that I may have a conversation with the person going forward concerning his liability. My understanding, based on, without going into too much detail, my understanding is that the resident was rendered whole by his insurance company, but for the deductible.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'll follow up. I'm following up. I presume I'm going to hear from the resident tomorrow. Get a conversation.
I would like to know, you stated that in the request we made for a meeting by all department heads to give an overview of their departments, that you determined that it would be as effective for you to have open houses with everyone. And I like the open houses, however, I feel like they're two separate issues, and I would like you to take the recommendation that we made last week and see if you can bring all of these people to a meeting and make what we requested happen.
I will, that is going to happen through the budget cycle anyway, which I will have a memo for you this week for your consideration. We are getting into the throes. I've got a lot of things going on. I've got to get through the negotiations with all of our unions. And I respectfully request that the direction that we're taking as a staff is better service and answers the spirit of what was requested of council, but I think will better serve the residents of council, the residents of Clawson in the long run.
I respectfully disagree that that meets the intention, because I believe if we talk about what we were talking about that day, is about providing a general overview of what every department does in like a brief 10-minute
And we'll
thing.
do
And
that.
I know that will come out of the budget sessions, but we kind of, when we were talking about it, if I'm not mistaken, we were looking at a way to just provide information for our residents that's very concise about what services we actually provide, whom you go to for those services, and not, I love the open houses. I think they're always fun. If you have kids, they're exceptional. Everyone does a really great job for the kid, to show young families what we do here. But I think as an older resident, perhaps you're not going to go to the DPW to look at the trucks, and you're not going to go to the fire department to climb on the trucks, but you might want to know what the process is for various things. And the budget sessions, I like to hear those stories again, goals, what's working, what's not working, what your wish lists are, questions we always ask them. But I feel like there are three succinctly different audiences and three succinctly different opportunities to share what we do. And not overly time consuming. People pretty much know what they do, so it's not going to take a lot for them to come before us to provide that information. So that if a resident wants to know that information, I think Councilmember Sampson suggested once that was done, they would be posted where someone could watch and see that information. So I know you're busy. I know everyone is busy. I know budgets are coming. I know you're doing all of these things, but I think multitasking is just part of everyday life, and I would like you to just take what we asked for and see if you can deliver
It was,
respectfully.
it was a council meeting, it was a council motion.
It was a council motion.
I believe we'll answer the spirit of what was moved, and I think this is getting into the very eaches of the day-to-day management of the city, and it's my job to resist that to some degree. And I'm doing my best to answer the call, but also do the job and balance competing priorities.
So you're refusing to do that, you're gonna do it your way.
I think I'm actually,
Is that a
I'm
refusal?
addressing your issue, but I'm not doing it necessarily on the timeline that you're specifying, because I think it's micromanaging.
We asked for it, we voted on it, it's a vote, it passed. So you're just refusing to do it?
I don't believe I'm refusing to do it. I believe I'm addressing the issue, but differently.
You're not completing it on time?
That could be your interpretation, correct?
Okay, I guess we'll address this later, unless anyone has any comments. You were here. What did you hear that day? If you'd like to weigh in or?
Yeah, I think
Surprise.
we don't need to get into the minutia of it. As far as having an open house and having them be part of the budget discussion, that's an open public meeting that anybody can have any questions at that point in time. So if we get any further into it, I think I don't want to say it's a waste of time, right? I'm not saying that, but it's not necessarily the best use of time.
So how did you vote on it last week? Should I go back and look? Because I believe you supported it, and what we requested was not what's being described. And I'm not trying to be picky about it. I think all of those formats
Go
are
back and take a look
exceptional.
however it voted. I'm just saying this is what I'm saying right now.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's good.
This
I
isn't,
understand that.
this isn't to cause anybody more work. It's to make it easier for the citizens to come in and hear all about the city at one time in a 1 or 2 hour program. And that's all we're going to talk about. They're going to hear all the other. They don't have to sit for 2.5 hours to hear what they want to hear. It's show up on Monday, we're going to teach all about the city, and then we're going to move on. And not add other things to it.
not to interrupt, but I apologize. I think that's useful in an open house. And also, as I just mentioned, I mean, you can have the description of that department and what's going on, and any of the details that they provide are part of that discussion. And they can have open dialogue with anybody who has a question at that point in time. And that's an open meeting at that.
We're asking for a condensed meeting. What Mr. Riker's talking about, it could be May, June, and July. People are going to have to come 3 different times. This is just one day, 2 hours. Everybody gets their 10 minutes. At least they meet the face. They know who to go to. Even if they don't get all their questions answered, they know how to get a hold of the person.
And that goes back to a point that if it's part of the budget cycle, part of budget presentation, and then as a workshop, they have 2 opportunities. Or not a workshop, but an open house.
And we can't keep making motions and passing them, and nobody does anything about them. It's just total disrespect to council.
I didn't say that as disrespect, and certainly as far as what the spirit of what we were trying to get for information for the citizens, I'm satisfied with the direction that Mr. Raker is going to provide, because it does answer, or it does provide the opportunity for citizens to become engaged. It may not necessarily be specific to what your thought was, but I don't want to get into a point in time where, well, why wasn't this done? Well, because we had, 6 different workshops as a result of having this. I think it's a specific time and place for each one of these during a budget report, and having an open house is spaced out accordingly. That's beneficial for the office of city manager and also for residents.
So I wouldn't have as much of an issue with this had we not discussed all of those things during our last conversation. We were specific that although open houses do take place, and that's a great forum, that's an opportunity for information. And that although we are requesting that the department heads do come before us for the budget session and present their departments, what they do, how they do what they do, what their needs are, and what their wish list would be. Those are separate opportunities. We asked for yet one more opportunity that would be succinct, timely, and just provide specific information. I think something we've not done as well as we can do is provide information to our residents, and this is a way to provide information to our residents about what they pay a significant amount of taxes for on a regular basis, right? This is about creating community, opening dialogue, putting faces, responsibilities, and capabilities together in a clean, precise way. And it's what we asked for. It's not, these things were discussed, 100% discussed. So to go back and say, oh yeah, just do the open houses, although sure, we could just do that, but that's not what we asked for, and that's not what this body approved. So that's the problem.
It was after the fact, the following Monday, when I had a staff meeting, that staff brought to me the historical resurrection of these open houses. And so I was like, all right, this sounds like it's an even better idea than having everybody come forth and basically repeat everything that's going to be said during the budget and compete with limited time and limited resources. I get it, this is like a stand, like, we told you to do this.
This is
what it's
not at all,
boiling down to.
Mr. Baker, no.
Yes, it is. That is
not at all
exactly what
that.
it's boiling down to.
It is not. You can't speak for me. I would 100% say you are wrong in that it is not, we told you thus. I've never done that with you. You can go back and play tape. I have never once done that to you. Please don't say that I did, and I'm not doing it here. I am simply imploring you to just, we agreed on something. We voted on something. This body voted for you to take on a task, and I'm asking that you take on that task and not take that task on in a format that works for you. I'm not saying I'm picking Tuesday, January, February 23rd, whatever date, and saying, have your people here to give us a presentation. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying it would be very beneficial. Well, we're requesting, we said, not even me, we said we would like this to happen. This body, the four of us that were here, I believe unanimously approved for this to move forward. And I understand you have three people sitting here tonight that put in a long day. And my props to you for sitting here. I really appreciate you. We also put in a long day. I mean, assuming everyone here had whatever duties they do during the day. So we're all probably on a 12, 13-hour day at this point, and I'm just talking to make it last longer because I love you all so much. But I'm talking because I don't want to be maligned for something that this body did. I'm not going to take the heat for standing up for something that we should stand up for. I don't think that it's wrong for this council, for this body, to have an expectation that you carry on something that was dedicated to you.
And there's no reason we can't do one condensed. Maybe people will get, geez, I'd like to know more about the DPW. They can go to your open house, it's okay. It's like two opportunities for them to see. If they really want to see more about something, they can go to DPW, they can go to police department. But it'd be nice for 2 hours tops. Everybody gives 10 minutes on what they do. Hey, if you want this done, call this person. If you want this, you got to pay a water bill, call here, and just give them a quick summation of how the city works. And then they can go to all the open houses to say, hey, that's pretty cool toys. I like them.
I see it as different audiences potentially, and I also see that we are in the business of customer service 100% all the time. And why would you not want to promote what we do and what we do well to our consumers? I just think that's really important. Any comments from anyone else? Councilmember Timlin, you weren't here, so you
I actually get a pass on this one? No.
Okay, you're
I have
sitting here
comment,
now,
but
so I'm
I won't
offering.
comment right now.
That's okay.
And you're part of the same body now.
Yeah. It's one for all for one.
If you don't mind, I just want to say, my concern is redundancy, right? If we do it 3-4 times, there's a point that, okay, so we have 4 people show up for an open house, we have 4 people show up who have concerns during the budget cycle, but then we're going to have a third one where we may have 3 people show up. I have concerns over the use of those resources for more than 2 opportunities to get that information across.
And I would say if 4 people show up, those 4 people count. If 3 people show up, those 3 people count, and those other 4 people count as well. And if it's 4, 3, 4, and it's the same 4, 3, missing 1, and 4, still worthwhile, and still not the point. The point is, we requested something, and we're being told that we're not going to fulfill that, and that's a little problematic. Councilmember Anderson, do you have anything to offer for this?
Well, the debate seems between what you directed and Mr. Raker trying to fulfill the spirit of it, if not the exact substance. So if we specifically want a certain format for this, Mr. Raker, would it be possible to push it back in time? I know you've got a budget cycle.
Sure, I guess if you want to push it back till after the budget, and the budget gets approved, I believe it's May, one second, I got it right here. May 16th.
So after May 16th, do you think you're in the clear for providing exactly what the council?
I mean, right after May 16th, you have a couple, 2-week window, and then we have Memorial Day, and then shortly, it starts off everything for the summer season. I'm not sure I'm not sure what the demand for this is coming from, because anyone that comes through, I would say, actually, Nick said it very well, 9.9 of 10 people that come through these doors leave satisfied with any issue they've had. Anytime you've ever directed me to any of your issues, I've addressed them. And so to pile on something for the fact of we brought exactly what your concerns were to the staff, and the staff came back, I thought, with a fantastic recommendation. And that fits all the other demands that are going on in the city at this time. And that is, and I guess we could entertain this after the budget at some point.
I would say we entertain it prior to the budget, and it can be the precursor, what do you call it? When you're in a play. And
Madam Mayor,
opening night.
I have
It could be
to-
the dress rehearsal for
No, ma'am. This is
that.
getting into the eaches of the day-to-day, and I have to resist this because I have negotiations that have to happen, and this is setting me back.
So-
And I'm telling you this candidly, and as the hired professional, I would expect that you hear me, please.
I hear you very well. You said that a task that we offered to you is a pile-on. Those were your exact words, a pile-on, to add one thing for you. And I've heard you repeatedly state that you can't do things because you're doing one thing. You are the hired professional, and a person at your level, well, I guess this is better suited for a review.
Sure.
I appreciate your trying to fulfill what we requested by not addressing what we requested, when we were quite specific on what we requested. And I do respect all of your people's time. This is not a matter of that. This is a matter of offering something to our community, and I'm a little concerned with why that's not a priority as well. But I will drop this for now. I think we should pick it up at a later time in a different venue, unless anyone else has anything else to talk about this right now.
Later time.
Okay, great. And regarding addressing our concerns, I will say you don't always provide responses to our concerns, and I would like, if I pass something along to you that I've been given, I would like the respect of having the response of how something is being handled moving forward. I don't think
Almost.
that's outside of the scope of
I
questioning.
answer if they're individuals.
I asked this week about the baseball, what the process is on that, like what information you have, what list you're working off of, and then what's being done. And you just told me that you had a phone conversation. That's zero information. I asked you about Dee Dee's, what's going on at Dee Dee's. I have
Yes, you
not
did.
received any
And
information.
it's ongoing. Pardon me, I left that one out.
You left both of those out this week.
No, I just told you that CYBSL, and I've given you updates about CYBSL on multiple occasions.
Really?
Not only that, but I've also tried to form a task force for the last several months to address these issues. That was met with nothing but resistance. Well, you can say it in the microphone, what you're saying to Mr.
I'm
Sampson.
asking what task force? What task force are we talking about for
Task force, roll the film.
CYBSL?
You want to look at film? Look at the film that I've been talking about.
Task force you're talking about, you're just talking about
I'm just
task
asking,
force.
what baseball
The
task
school
force
one?
are we talking
Yes,
about?
exactly.
The school one, we told you to,
And I'm moving
There was a
forward with that.
motion.
And I'm moving forward with that. But I brought it up since probably October, if not before that.
you should already be meeting with the task force. We gave you the okay to start the task force. I mean,
You didn't give me the okay, you just kind of acquiesced to like, we're not going to do
Actually,
anything about it.
I believe we
So-
asked you, we gave you some dates to work towards. We gave you, I think, 3 or 4 dates in January that would be available for a meeting, and we never heard back from you, so I'm
I
assuming that.
don't think
that-
that's at all the case. I think Mr. Shepherd is the one who provided those dates and everyone else resisted to provide information.
No, that's not true.
I
That's
believe
not
it is.
true.
I believe your recollection is not correct.
Okay. Mr. Raker, thanks so much for your service and for your cooperation and for all the great things that you do, because you do some great things, and we really do appreciate those. Thank you so
Appreciate the good
much.
ones you do too, ma'am.
Yep. Feeling the love here, everyone, tonight. We're precursoring for that planning commission meeting on the 14th. We're all going to take our loved ones too, because we're not just living, we're not going single now. We're not going as couples. We're going to take the whole family and love the whole family at the planning commission all on one day, just to drag things together. How about city council comments? Councilmember Tinlin, thank you for joining us for this very short, you must have brought some of planning with you today, because planning meetings are this long. City council meetings, we do not like to go this long, so I'm gonna just put it on you for this
Well, I had a
evening, just
very
for
long
fun.
comment thing, which I'm not going to do now. So I just want to thank all the council members, Madam Mayor, the administration, for all the time they spent with me in the last 2 weeks. I really appreciate it. It helped get me up to speed, I hope, and I'll continue to serve. I was going to have another motion tonight, but I'm going to save that and get it worded more correctly, and then I'll just present it the next meeting.
Well, we'll be on the edge of our seats waiting for that, right? Right, team?
On the status of our fields for not just baseball, but recreational. So what's interesting is that in my discussion with those key people that I interact with, who are directly on the CYBSL, who are coaches, who have any other athletes that use our fields, not just in our community, but other communities, that they have commended us on the conditions of our baseball diamonds, and specifically in our park. The only ones that I think may have some concern are not under our discretion. Those are those fields that are on school properties. And we already understand what those concerns are, because we have addressed those with those joint people that have an interest in those properties. That's with Parks and Rec, that's with the CYBSL, it's with the school district, and it's with city administration. So those are already being addressed. So my concern is that there may be some incorrect information or misperception regarding the status of our baseball fields within the park. And I have had a number of people comment how great our diamonds are, and actually wish that their own fields in their own communities were as well maintained as ours are.
That's great. I'll forward you the list that was given to me.
I would appreciate it, because I would love to see what that is, because that could be a starting point. But right now, understand that we have already gone in front with complaints that we had back in COVID, when there was no baseball, on the condition of a field at Kenwood, which had been personally addressed between myself and Gina at one point in time, right? And making sure that that was also brought up prior to Mr. Raker's joining us as in his role, and with having the assistance of Nick spearhead that motion to make sure that we have those playing fields in a condition that are not under 3 inches of snow right now, but are ready to go when the time is appropriate in May.
Thank you for your passion for baseball fields, Councilmember Shepherd.
So if you could send that to me, I'd appreciate it.
I'm surprised that you didn't get it.
Was that?
I'm surprised you didn't get it. Being part of the team and all. You must be aware, just saying. Councilmember Sampson?
I've said enough.
You think? Mayor Pro Tem Anderson.
No comment at this time.
Okay. I would just like to say thank you for everyone for sticking here. You people are at home, you don't even know. We actually have bodies sitting here still, and they're mostly awake. I'm not going to say they're overly happy, but they're awake, and there's a few smiles there, so we appreciate them. And if you're watching at home, thank you for watching. If you're involved in anything in the community, we thank you. Thank you for your keeping us honest. Thank you for supporting our teams here and for supporting each one of us. That's it for the evening. I hope you all have a great evening, and
Mayor.
we'll see you next time.
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
We got to vote.
Sampson.
Yes.
Shepherd.
Yes.
Tinlin.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
Milan.
Yes,
Your turn.
closed. Thank you. I should not have printed all this stuff this time. What a waste. Yes.
That was a thick ass pack. I'll have a meeting by the end of the night. You're that type.
Not that type.
You lied. I know.